I've probably met with 50, 60 realtors in like an 18-month span. So I was going on these coffee meets I was doing the same thing that these loan officers were doing. And I think until you really take a step back and say, okay, it's not like some numbers game where you can just meet with every realtor and eventually like, hey, they're going to have some business from me. I met with them once. You really do need to find a way to develop a relationship with a realtor.
Welcome back to Good Better Broker. As we bring in Jalen, Scott, and Grace Mulcahy, they are a broker realtor team based here in Metro Detroit. Jalen, Grace, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Yeah.
So a bit about both of you. Jalen, you are the co-founder and mortgage broker with Belong Lending. This is your 9th year in the mortgage industry. And Grace, you are a realtor with At Properties.
Yep.
25 million plus in career sales in your 5 years in the business with 100 plus transactions either led or assisted. So as we dive into the conversation and kind of get into the weeds of this partnership that the two of you have, Jalen, let me ask you first, describe the partnership between you and Grace and why you think it's been a productive one.
Yeah, and Grace and I have been working together for a couple years now. I think the reason it's productive is I think the nature that we started working together was supernatural. I think a lot of the loan officers that I've worked with and talked through, building realtor relationships, it's always trying to find a way to not come off salesy. And I was lucky enough to get introduced to Grace, and we met really just over some drinks at a local bar near us and didn't even talk about business. So I think, we got the opportunity to meet each other personally without me saying, hey, how can I get all your business? And I think that was a really natural way for us to go, okay, I think I actually would like working with you. So it kind of just naturally progressed where I got an opportunity to do a deal with her and it worked and kind of built from there.
Yeah, it's worked out since then. So,
Grace, you were actually telling me that you get contacted by lenders all the time, like every other day. And usually they have an approach that maybe doesn't come off the way that you would like it to.
yeah.
Tell us what they normally do. And now also tell us what Jalen did.
Well, I would say there's a range, depending on how bold someone is. Some people straight up ask, do you have any business for me right now? And I know nothing about them. And, I'm sure you can imagine how much I enjoy that. But most people just ask to get coffee. And, early on in my career, that was something that I would do pretty often, just go sit down with lenders and have a cup of coffee and hear the same sales pitch. And very quickly I realized that wasn't a good use of my time. So having the mutual connection that we do have and, knowing that we're close in age, and I don't even know if I knew you were newer to the business at the time, but he seemed to approach me like a normal person, not like somebody who wanted something from me. And I appreciated that. So we had a normal conversation and kind of hit it off, and it's worked out great since.
And he wasn't trying to sell you, right?
No, thank you.
No, and what's funny is I feel like I have this plastic bag full of business cards that I keep to show new people that join our team. Like I've probably met with 50, 60 realtors in like an 18-month span. So I was going on these coffee meets I was doing the same thing that these loan officers were doing. And I think until you really take a step back and say, okay, it's not like some numbers game where you can just meet with every realtor and eventually like, hey, they're going to have some business from me. I met with them once. You really do need to find a way to develop a relationship with a realtor.
Definitely.
So like I said, we just kind of started off on like, how did you get into the business? How's it going for you?
Like a regular person.
Yeah.
Like a regular person.
We just had a normal chat, and it was really nice to not be sold, or having someone trying to sell me on something, even though we are in that business and I get it. But yeah.
Jalen, you were just talking about that plastic bag full of business cards, and obviously it's a numbers game sometimes. You want to, reach out to as many agents as you possibly can. But in your experience, how do you determine which agents are the ones that you can work with on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's something that I actually learned from someone on my team named Antoinette Gassaway. She always used to tell me in my first year, like, find your people. And I feel like I never really had realtors that I related to. So now like I said, I try to find people that I would enjoy hanging out with and that we have overlaps in our personal life. Like we live in the same area, probably bump into each other at the same restaurants and bars in the same age group. I think some people, overcomplicate building relationships with realtors or going on after the wrong people. I think you just find people that you'd want to work with if you had the choice, because you do.
Grace, I always like to ask our guests who are realtors this question. When it comes to what you are looking for in your lending partners, what things are top of mind?
That's a great question. I would say someone who takes an approach to their business similar to I do, which is very education based and friendly, I should say. You know, I'm not the perfectly buttoned up, wearing a suit every day, old school realtor. I try to make the buying process enjoyable for my clients, and I want someone who can kind of give that same experience to them on the loan side of things. Of course, being available and personable and kind, and someone who's also really willing to take the time to handhold our new buyers through this very scary and overwhelming process is definitely most important.
Jalen, I believe that when we had you on the podcast the first time around, you were talking about your approach and how much of it is focused around education. What did you think to yourself in your conversations with Grace, and you found out that you basically shared that in common?
Yeah, I mean, she's actually relatively successful on social media, building content and connecting with first-time home buyers. So I think I quickly realized we connected because she spent a lot of time in that space trying to educate people, going after first-time home buyers. So it just was super mutual where, you know, I would see someone who would get a home and have no idea what a mortgage was, no idea what amortization was, what goes into monthly payment, why they're in the rate they're in. So I just saw that as such a huge opportunity to say, okay, how do I just spend as much time as possible in the upfront? Because then it's not a sale. You know, then as long as I can educate these people, their guards are down and they understand why the numbers look how they look. So she takes a similar approach in real estate, and I think she saw that I was doing the same thing. So it was just super natural.
As this partnership has grown, one very interesting thing that the two of you have started doing together is going to initial client meetings with each other. Grace, tell me, what is the strategy behind this?
So I would say there's a couple different reasons, in my opinion. You know, I think on Jalen's side of things, you know, you generally don't meet people until a closing.
Yeah.
I have the advantage where I'm usually meeting someone very quickly, and it's to show them a house. And, you know, I can form bonds with people much easier because of that. You know, we get actual FaceTime. So having meetings with clients together, whether it's from a lead source of mine or a lead source of his, I think you could agree, like, when your clients are working with a good realtor, it makes your life 10 times easier.
1,000%.
And I would much rather have people working with a lender who I trust on a personal and professional level. And so if we can kind of facilitate forming those connections with one another at an initial meeting, I think we've done it. Sorry, we've done it already, and it seemed to work great. And I think just kind of building credibility for one another definitely helps.
It's interesting to me because I believe we talked about this before the interview, that at least once in one of these initial client meetings, the client had questions for both of you. And if you think about it, when you're buying a house, yeah, you want to know what the bedrooms are like. You want to know all the different things, you know, about the area, so on and so forth. But the financing has to be there as well. What is that like when you walk into a coffee shop or wherever you are and you two are together and you know that you got each other covered in terms of all the questions that could come your way, Jalen?
Yeah, I think it's just super natural. Like you said, I think oftentimes you see a lot of realtors trying to do the loan officer's job, or the loan officer trying to do the realtor's job, where it's like, well, just ask for seller's credit here, or, you know, you need to be pre-approved for this high. But when you're both there working on it together, like I always say, a broker who's self-employed does the same job as a realtor. But for some reason, there's just this divide between realtors and loan officers, mainly because realtors are the ones generating business and loan officers are just kind of saying, hey, give me a loan. So there's this natural butting of the heads. But I really looked at, like, how do I show realtors that I want to do what they do and generate business and be a true partner? And, you know, I knew I needed to get to the front of that client process by meeting up front, and it's worked really well for us.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous opportunity for you because, like you said a couple of minutes ago, most of the time you're not even meeting the client face to face until the closing, the very end of the process.
Definitely.
So Grace, I would have to think that you got to be really confident in your partner Jalen here to bring him along with you. And I don't want to say bring him along, but for the two of you to both meet together with that client early on in the process when nothing has been decided yet.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. The clients that we met with the other day, I think they were pretty solid on working with you, but they weren't sure as to what realtor they were going to be working with. And, just kind of going back and forth and playing off of one another with answering their questions definitely helped. But yeah, I mean, I have the utmost confidence in him at this point and just his whole team and what they can do for my clients. So I would say it's helpful going into those meetings knowing that we kind of have each other's back and we can kind of pass questions back and forth. And I think the client feels really supported because of that as well.
What about just the opportunity to present yourselves as a package deal?
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of times someone may have a realtor they prefer to work with. Maybe they have a lender they prefer to work with. Probably not both. The opportunity that this partnership presents to have this be a package deal, Jalen, what is that like?
It makes our clients stickier. Like when we're together in a room and they see us working together to help them buy a home, like they see it as a package because that's how we're working. They're like, okay, you're handling that, you're handling that. And now the clients can kind of visualize why a realtor's important, why having a good lender's important. And again, oftentimes a lender and a realtor are working against each other. We're like, why is that way? Why are they showing you that? Where now we're working together. So it brings us together and allows a client to have a clear understanding of buying a home. And I think in the short experience we've had doing it, it's led to more clients sticking to us.
For sure.
And to that end, the two of you are now having regular conversations about marketing together. And in fact, I think that the first time I had actually learned about Grace was when I saw a picture of the two of you at a closing together on social media. Tell me about the marketing conversations, Grace. What have they been like and the opportunity that exists to market alongside a lending partner of yours?
Yeah, so I think, the thing about social media is it's kind of the long game, in my opinion. Of course, you're looking for people who are ready to buy now, but I also think it's helpful in the sense that, say Jalen's having a conversation with someone and finds out they don't have a realtor. He mentions my name. Maybe they've been following Jalen for 6 months and they're like, oh, I recognize Grace's name because I've seen her in multiple posts with Jalen. So I think, again, just adding layers and layers of credibility up front before we even get to meet with people just makes our lives so much easier getting people to stick with us.
Yeah, and I'll even, like, in my Google page, I have a picture of us at closing. Like she says on my Instagram for business, a bunch of pictures of us closing. So it's super easy. I say, hey, this is a realtor that I always refer people to. You can see we close deals together. So it's been super helpful.
A few minutes ago, I asked you about what you look for in your lending partners, and we preach this here at UWM, but provide value, right? Yeah. Offer up value to your real estate partner so that they do want to bring you business.
Yeah.
Jalen does something that's a little bit different in a good way, and by that I mean instead of just asking you what you need help with or what your pain points are, he actually comes to you with ideas.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're both entrepreneurs, and so I think it can become very difficult being proactive with, coming up with new ideas, whether it's managing your database, generating leads, like whatever it may be, while also trying to manage your current load of business. So I find that Jalen provides a lot of value to me in coming up with future ideas or additional things that we should be doing, or even just things that I can do myself without him outside of our partnership for my business or vice versa. Because even though, we're not in the exact same lane, a lot of the things that you may do for your business, I can apply to my business and vice versa.
Yeah,
so,
a lot of content ideas.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the stuff like that I see her doing, she's like, sends me that, like, you should make that. I'm like, oh, that's smart.
And to me, that's the definition of providing value, right? Yeah. It's bringing something to a business partner of yours that works well for them or could work well for them with absolutely zero expectation of anything in return.
Right.
And instead of him just trying to identify, what your areas of need are, you're actually going to her with different ideas. When you actually do that, how do you go about game planning them out or putting them together?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like the first time was kind of like, hey, like, I see you're doing X, Y, and Z, whether it's like, posting on social or talking about hosting events. I'm like, Why don't we do that together in some form or facet? And again, she's open because we're already working. So I think it was more of like a brainstorming approach first, because everyone has these ideas of like, how do we put together events? How do we, you know, meet with our clients up front? What would look better for our process? And I think just approaching it as an opportunity, again, that we're on the same team. How can we brainstorm doing it together? It just made it easier.
Want to talk next about availability. Such a big deal in this business. And I think, Jalen, you mentioned it earlier. You know, you're both self-employed. So obviously you have that in common. Grace, how much does that availability matter to you with your lending partners?
Oh, I can't say enough how much it matters. It's definitely up there. You know, although we're not doing brain surgery or saving lives, especially in the last 5 years, like this market is very, very fast paced, and you can lose a deal in a matter of minutes if you're not quick enough. So availability is definitely probably top of the list in importance with a lender partner.
And you were saying that essentially, if you're going to pick up the phone on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock to talk to a client who wants to talk, then you kind of need to have a lender who's of the same mindset. Is that correct?
100%. I need to know that someone's willing to put in as much time and effort for our clients as I am, because ultimately, you know, Jalen's a reflection of me as I am of him if we're passing clients back and forth. So I expect nothing less, and I would say you probably feel the same about me.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, like I've said this a lot, but I always say like we do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's my sell against like a retail or a credit union. It's like that guy's getting a salary,
Right.
and he could care less what happens on a Saturday, Sunday, you know? So I know like I'll send texts out on the weekend. Hey, I'm working. If you need something, let me know.
Yeah.
So I think it's just such an opportunity for loan officers to build relationships with their realtors.
Definitely.
Grace, you mentioned the competitive market that we're in and how, you know, deals can go up in smoke in a matter of minutes if things are not done quickly.
Yep.
You have a specific story about an appraisal waiver that Jalen helped you out with, and it proved to be hugely helpful.
Yep.
Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so I think it was a Sunday morning. So, you know, and I understand the world slows down on a Sunday morning, so we'll preface with that. But I had just shown a house to some buyers of mine, and they actually came to me already pre-approved by someone with Jalen's company, so one of his lender partners. And after we saw the house, they loved it. I get a call from the listing agent saying, hey, we just got another offer on the table. They want to know right now if they're going to accept. So you need to get me an offer like
Crazy.
2 minutes ago. So, and what was going to be important was getting an appraisal waiver given the competitiveness of this other offer. So I called their lender. He didn't answer. You know, my heart's racing. Time is of the essence. I know it may sound silly, but it was pretty intense. So I thought to reach out to Jalen, given that they work for the same company. Maybe he can look up their file, run some numbers. And he ended up coming through in a pinch, and we got the deal done. And my clients live in that house today, and they're very happy. And that definitely would have never happened if they were working with a big bank or really any other company, I don't think.
Great story, and good on you for coming through in a pinch for Grace there. Jalen, let me ask you this. With this partnership and you two spending more time together and working more together, what has Grace taught you or helped you with that's helped you become a better mortgage broker?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, honestly. Like I said, we take a joint approach to a lot of things, whether we're brainstorming. But I will say, like, just from the offer perspective, like she said, it's so competitive. And every line on your offer matters. And one of those things is, you know, how often are you following up? You know, what do your financing contingencies look like? And I think she's super aggressive with offers. Like she's not afraid to call a listing agent 4 or 5 times in a day.
Maybe annoying, but
yeah,
okay.
I mean it helps. So I think
do it.
I've learned from her, like sometimes like the squeaky wheel gets the oil,
the grease,
the grease. So like reaching out to that listing agent, like, hey, like we just want to know, is there anything on the financing side that's preventing this guy from getting this home or gal? So I think just being aggressive on my offers when they're going in, again, shows that partnership. And it also gives you just an opportunity to build a relationship with the listing agent, because you'll probably see them again if you're submitting offers in the same area.
Definitely. Yeah, we just did a deal together, and the listing agent was so pleased and surprised with how quickly things were done. He wanted Jalen's contact. So, I mean,
right, yep.
it definitely matters, you know, on all ends.
So you're obviously telling him you got to be more aggressive. You got to make more phone calls. I mean, you can't just wait for them to call you back.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you can't be passive. Although,
Yeah.
like, I don't like to bother people. I don't like to be annoying. But at the end of the day, you know, the more a person sees your name, the more they're gonna prioritize you in a situation like multiple offers. So
Yeah, fair
100%.
enough. As we come to the close here, I want to ask you, I want to go back to the point about the competitiveness of this market and also affordability. I mean, you both know that it's hard right now. It is really challenging, especially for first-time home buyers to be able to get into a house. Grace, I'll start with you, and I want you both to comment on this. What is the value in being able to come up with different strategies, whether it's a smaller down payment or whatever the case may be, that you're able to collaborate with Jalen on and then bring those to one of your clients in the hopes that will help them get over the finish line?
Yeah, so I think genuinely that the buying process for people can be whatever they want. So if we have a client who really wants to prioritize saving as much money as possible, maybe getting closing cost assistance, although it may seem impossible, it's not in this market. You know, you may need to get crafty with where you're looking or, you know, compromising on certain things, but it's definitely doable. And on the flip side, when you have clients who are hell-bent on getting everything on their list, but have a limited amount of funds for either their down payment and or closing costs, and we need to get into appraisal guarantees, appraisal waivers, we may need to move money around. And I think just having a teamwork mindset of, okay, we're all on the same page. We all know that to get this house, we're going to need to be very competitive. Maybe instead of putting 20% down, we do 10% down, and then we can do an appraisal guarantee of some sort. Just having that open line of communication and making sure that everyone's on the same page is definitely helpful. But I empathize with people because it is tough right now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I guess to answer the question as well, I do think like it starts sometimes with like in the case of it's tough out here because it's you know, rates are relatively high, and I'm sure most loan officers and realtors will attest that they hear that. But sometimes it just takes refraining and trying to take a positive approach to people.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like framing offers, I do think like just knowing your numbers up front really helps you, you know, put together a well-structured offer. Because like I see so many times where someone will submit something and they'll say, why did my closing costs go up $4,000? You know, and I think, you know, knowing your numbers up front just makes a huge difference when it comes to putting together an offer from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it probably makes it more incumbent upon both of you to make sure that you're educating the client, because you don't want somebody coming back to you with questions about being surprised and vice versa for you, right?
Right. Yeah, that would not make us look good. So
Not at all.
no.
Well,
No.
that
never
is
happens.
that scenario aside, which would never happen, we
No,
know.
it wouldn't. It wouldn't.
You're both doing a great job of you know, complementing each other, and I think it's just super cool to see the way that this partnership has started, evolved, and continues to grow with the different things you guys are doing as a team. So we appreciate you sharing those stories with us, and continued success to both of you, Grace Mulcahy and Jalen Scott. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Justin.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching Good Better Broker and helping us support independent mortgage brokers everywhere. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified about new videos, as well as your preferred podcast platform for a new episode every other Tuesday.